Still some more seats on the front row and the second row, stuff like that. In fact, if you have an empty seat by you, raise your hand. Some of the people in the back can find a seat. So there's still some seats there. This may be and there's seats right there next to Bob. He's not going to bite. And honestly, this meeting may take a little while, so I don't want people to stand up and hurt their back or knees.
They talk in the mic. Thought it was choppy, but it's okay.
Order. This is Tuesday, February 27th. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Blue?
Present.
Commissioner Morris?
Present.
Commissioner Jackson?
Present.
If you all join me with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. That's always a great way to start out the morning. So we've got a packed house and appreciate everyone being here today. Normally when we have this type of crowd, we would be upstairs in the old courtroom in the old historic courthouse where we office out of, and there's something going on there today, so there's a conflict. Or we could actually accommodate more people. We could get about 115 people, and we've had 100 some people there several times last year when we did work study sessions. And that's where we'll have them again this year, but there was a conflict today. So appreciate this space to have this type of crowd here today. So first thing we'll be doing today is there's no item being removed from the consent agenda. We will need to approve the consent agenda. We have the approval of today's agenda. We need the approval of the minutes of last week's meeting. We had actually two meetings on February 22nd. We had one at 9 a.m. We had one at 9:26 a.m. We had several people there last week at that 9:26 a.m. meeting. Also, we have approval and discussion of financials. We have one financial. It is 02-27-2024-01, and it is for CART funds $184,000, $884,631.07 was dispersed to our two common one and common two, our two road districts plus 6 other special road districts. And so that is our financial. We have taken everything else off the agenda today. This agenda is only about the battery storage energy system that is being proposed in Christian County. So this whole meeting is about that, and so we're going to get started on that. Need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that motion, sir.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started. I think the way we're going to do this agenda today is we will start with Mr. Todd Weisenhahn, Director of Planning and Zoning and Planning, and then he's got a program he wants to kind of get started. We want, how many was here last Thursday at the other building? I know there was a lot of people there. It looks like a lot of these are new people. That's great. Because you need to hear all this information. But we're going to go over a program that he wants to share. And then we've got a really an expert, civil engineer from Houston, Texas, that represents the company. And that is Carolyn O'Brien. And came from Houston, Texas, so qualifies you as the expert today because you drove the Ford. Flew the Ford, but she didn't drive. So, but anyway, so. If not, we'll go ahead and get you started.
Okay. As you mentioned, the topic here is a request to establish a utility-scale battery energy storage system. It's a mouthful, so those are often referred to as a BESS. As you mentioned, Carolyn O'Brien is here from Black Mountain Energy Storage. I just wanted to share some initial information here. Okay, so the location of this project is out on Old Prospect Road, just to the east of Elk Valley Road. There's a star on this map here that approximates general location. So their intention is to develop a 75 megawatt by 2-hour utility scale BESS. It's located just south of the city limits of Ozark. The facility would interconnect directly with the existing substation, which will give it the ability to charge and discharge electricity to and from the grid. Because of the project size, it does require a lot of advanced planning. Currently, the estimated construction start would not be until 2026, with the facility operation beginning in Q1 of 2027 or potentially even later. Projected cost of this facility is at $100 million. It's anticipated that during construction it would create 100 to 150 construction jobs. But then following the completion of that construction, the activity at the site would be limited to just some periodic monthly visits by a small maintenance staff. And the applicant has a recorded purchase agreement for this property that's been in place since August of last year. The project would utilize about 6 to 8 acres of the overall 34.16 acre parcel. Visually, this picture gives you an idea of what it looks like at ground level. It's metal climate controlled structures that house the batteries. They're about 8 feet in height. And then there would also be a small substation located near to the existing one right next door. Here's an aerial photo of the site, basically as it sits today. See, it's essentially a large open field. This exhibit overlays a version of the site plan that they proposed on the aerial photo to give you an idea of how it would sit in the existing site. It also has some context here as far as distancing goes. The nearest house is about 525 feet from the current substation, and it would be about 600 feet from this additional development. The distance from that development over to the corner of Elk Valley and Old Prospect is about a half mile, and the distance from the edge of the existing substation over to that same intersection is about 0.36 miles. So we have gotten plenty of public input. Also, over the last year, staff has identified some obvious concerns that need to be addressed. They fall in the areas of siting and visual impact, which would hope to be addressed in plan requirements, things like vegetative buffering, environmental concerns in terms of stormwater management, erosion control, how it might affect the wildlife habitat in the area. Certainly the issue of safety is a big one, being prepared for emergencies and addressing potential fire hazards. And then lastly, removal. What happens if this project fails or the company goes out of business? Issues of abandonment, how to decommission the facility, and potentially some financial assurance to make sure that it can be removed when the time comes. So we did a little experiment. Took our friendly field inspector, Josh Bird, out to the site and gave him a stick and a flag that's about 9.5 feet tall. So go out there about where this facility is going to be. So he took that out, and we took some photos from 9 vantage points. See where those are located. First one over at Elk Valley Road, just south of that Cherokee Circle there. You can see where the project site approximately would be at the existing substation. It seems like it most likely might be visible from that vantage point. We went on to the second location, which was out at Elk Valley and Melissa Avenue. So we look towards the site, and again, you can see where the project site would be in the existing substation. And as we got closer to the site over here, number 3, which is right adjacent to where the existing substation is, this photo is taken by the road, and the lay of the land does not really allow you to see where Josh was standing with his 9-foot flagpole. And went down over to one of the neighboring properties. There was a driveway leading up to a gate posted private property. Stayed on the outside. But again, there's some dense trees there. It was a nice day, not nice enough for the leaves to sprout yet, but very difficult to make out anything beyond those trees. And then lastly, we headed up into the neighborhood nearby off of Tillman Road and tried to take a photo identifying where the site would be from that direction, and it really was not. So, about this meeting. So if the county commission votes to allow the placement of this facility, that decision would be adopted in the form of an order. The process we're going through allows for the commission to identify legitimate concerns associated with the siting of this project and to consider ways in which those concerns might be mitigated. The commission has the ability to place specific requirements as a condition of approval and attach those conditions to the order. Staff has assembled a draft list of conditions and requirements that are intended to reasonably address the major concerns which have been identified so far. So in the next couple slides, I just wanted to summarize the types of requirements and conditions being suggested. When it comes to siting and visual impact, there will be definitely requirements associated with the site plan. We need to include measurements and locations of all property lines and physical features. There would need to be provisions for visual buffering, requiring tree plantings around the perimeter of the facility where there are not already, significant amounts to buffer. There would the requirements for lighting, to ensure that all lighting required to aim downward and inward to the site to minimize any light pollution. As far as access goes, this lays in the Selmore Special Road District. They would have control over approving a point of connection. That would have to be agreed upon. The developer, of course, would bear the burden of all traffic management during the construction phase. In the environmental side, engineering analysis and provisions for water management and detention would be required as part of the site development plan. As far as erosion control, prior to development, a full plan to control soil erosion would need to be developed and put in place. And as far as wildlife habitat goes, there are recommendations that were found in the study addressing endangered species and so forth that would be followed to preserve existing wetland, ponds, and minimizing tree removal. Then we get into safety. We need to talk about a commissioning plan, which is a plan that documents that the facility and its controls and its safety systems are in working order prior to operation. The developer would need to provide a system and property operations and maintenance manual that documents and explains the design, construction, maintenance, testing, and applicable codes. We would need an emergency operations plan, which is a multi-jurisdictional plan that details processes and procedures that would be taken in the event of an emergency, and a fire safety compliance plan, which is a specific to be in compliance with local fire codes and specific standards and codes that are relevant to best. The plan would also include for specific training for our local emergency responders. And for security, there would need to be security fencing around the facility, and the fire department would want to have a Knox box for access if they needed to have some sort of emergency response. Finally, removal. There needs to be a decommissioning and removal plan. That would be a full plan for removal that would need to be presented prior to the issuance of any building permits. That includes the removal of everything, disposal of batteries and equipment, and revegetation, and returning the site to its original condition. There would also need to be an assurance of completion, which is a detailed estimate of cost for removal that would need to be provided for review. And we would want to see a bond in place that provides a guarantee that this would happen. Also provisions for if the facility ceases operation for 1 year, it would then be considered abandoned. And then also, as far as ownership changes go, if there is a change in ownership, the county commission must be notified, and any subsequent owner would be bound by the same conditions of approval. At that point, that's what I have for you. Certainly, Carolyn O'Brien has much more to add.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Todd. So, Carolyn, if you want to go ahead and get up there, we'll go ahead and let you do your presentation. Carolyn O'Brien.
Hey everybody, is this on? Can you hear me? How about now? Can you hear me now? I had us turned around today because I know there's a lot of you here. So I'm going to try and talk to everybody. All right, so I'm Carolyn O'Brien with Black Mountain Energy Storage. Better? Okay. Sorry. I'm not used to talking to so many people. I'm the Director of Permitting and Entitlements here at Black Mountain Energy Storage. We really appreciate everyone coming out today. We have a presentation to hopefully alleviate some of the worries that y'all have expressed, but obviously I'll be available for questions afterwards as well. So this is just an overview of who we are. We are Black Mountain Energy Storage, but our parent company is Black Mountain. We're founded by Rhett Bennett in 2007. Black Mountain Energy Storage was founded in 2021. As y'all are probably aware, battery energy is a pretty new technology. We are on the forefront of the companies that have been created. So even though 3 years may not seem like a very long time, it's a long time in kind of the standalone battery energy storage space. Rhett does have a history of really successful companies all over the energy map, so he has a lot of experience in oil and gas. He has sand mines, nickel mines, like that. So I think Todd had some of these printed out back here, so you may already have read these slides. But this just kind of gives you an example of what each container looks like. As Todd said in his presentation earlier, they're only about 8 feet tall and 40 feet long, so if you know what a tractor trailer looks like, they're about that size. They're not made to be opened. They're only open in this picture so that we can see what's in them. They include the lithium-ion batteries and racks, the inverters, the energy management systems, and the fire suppression HVAC systems. Again, this one was back here, but this just gives you a little bit more information on the fire safety. These containers are made to operate outside, and they're made to operate in environments that things might happen to them. So they have a lot of safety measures incorporated into them. So there's fire detection for smoke and heat. There's explosion prevention. There's an emergency stop. As I mentioned before, they're not made to be opened. So several years ago, they were able to be opened, and there were some issues with that with fire and firefighters. And several years ago, they changed that so that there's no way to open these anymore. And we do work very, very closely with the fire departments to make sure that they're completely trained and absolutely understand what to do in a situation if something were to happen. And then there's also the redundancy designs in here. So if one smoke detector doesn't work for some reason, the batteries go out or some act of God, we have a second one in here. So we should have backups for every single thing in here so that it's safe. There's also full-scale fire testing that goes along with these. There's years that go into these batteries, the testing before they actually are put out onto the market. So the UL 9548 testing and NFPA 855 testing goes in here. And like I said, they test them every which way they can think of. So, we can go through each different crazy scenario that we can think of, but these guys have already thought about it. If the cow bumps into it, they think of it. If someone shoots it, they test it and they see what's going to happen and then they fix it. And they're also, I showed the photo before of the racks, and they're made up of the cell and then the module, which is composed of the cells, and then the modules go in a rack, which are the things that slide in, and then the unit are the things that all the modules or the racks slide in. So they're all tested on an individual basis. So it's not like we just get the battery storage container and that's what we do. They test each piece on its own so that they understand how each piece works individually and then also together as a full component. And this is just a little bit about what we are to the community. So we have a team of really smart people that look at where we're going to put these things. They're our siting team. And so I spoke with him a little bit about how we decided on this specific location. So the power in this area comes from, excuse me, I am a civil engineer, so hopefully I get all this right, but they comes from 2 dams and a coal plant in this area. So the way it was explained to me is that White River controls pretty much all of the power production in this area. So when White River is at a certain level, the reservoirs either are released or not released, and that is what provides the power from the dams. And that may not always be what's optimal for power transmission or rates or anything else. And then, of course, if you're in a flood condition or a drought condition, there may or may not be a release from the dam. And also with the coal power plant, if you're in a drought condition, it can really affect the power that's produced from the coal plant. So with the battery storage in this area, it kind of smooths the curve.
Blue Ford Focus parked right out front. Come on. Yeah, Carla. Sorry, I'm not confused.
Where it was me for a second. So it's so basically it sort of flattens the curve, if you will, on the peaks and valleys that you can get with the energy production that's provided. That's basically dependent on White River in this area. So those 2 points there, that kind of is the electric reliability and the transmission inefficiencies. So if they need to do a release on the reservoir at Table Rock Dam, and it's not really the best time, if you will, during the middle of the day when not everybody's using power, and that's where you get your inefficiencies. But the battery storage can help kind of flatten that stuff out. The tax contributions, we are over $100 million facility with a lifespan of 20 years. And I know they talked about this a little bit, and we don't talk to the tax assessor. So there is a tax benefit to the county. Oh, sorry, trying to include everybody. And then good neighbors, that's why we're here. We do want to be good neighbors. I know a lot of y'all are concerned about that. We really want y'all to feel like we're going to come into the community and you're going to know what's happening and that you're going to be safe. You're going to be able to enjoy the wildlife. And I'll touch on all that. I'm not done yet.
Are we allowed to ask questions along
Let's wait till we get the presentation done, and we'll keep her up there, and we'll wait till she gets done. Then we'll start doing the questions, and she can stand there, and we'll all help her answer questions.
I'll try and go fast.
Just remember your question.
I'm not going. Can you go on my next slide?
Yeah.
And can you go to the next slide? So it's not really nice, but going.
Strategy. Going on the computer, but not the TV.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. You're back. Or started it. Yeah. You just logged in.
There you go.
This is just an example of a facility that was recently built in Texas. It's Pflugerville. If you don't know how to say it, it's actually down the street from our office in Austin. So you can see kind of what it looks like when it's constructed. Pflugerville is a pretty built up city. So the existing substation is to the north. You can kind of see it. Our substation is the one that's fully displayed. It's the north battery storage. This is a rendering of another battery storage site, just to give you an idea again of what it would look like. And then this is a site plan of one that was recently approved in Milwaukee. I included this one because we are, if you can see in the aerial, we are very close to several single family subdivisions. And on this one, we did provide landscaping and things just like Todd was talking about in his presentation. Project location, I think everybody knows where it is, so I'll skip this one. And this is just a little bit about our site. I know Todd went over it already, so I'll kind of zip through this one. We have 33 acres. We're currently zoned agriculture A1. We do look at all the environmental studies. I'm going to touch on that in the next slide. One of the things that we had included in the narrative was that we were going to go into operation in 2027. We actually are now looking at 2028. This is because the breakers that are required to be installed with these type of developments have a 36-month lead time. So we are very ahead of schedule. So this isn't something that's going to be built tomorrow. It's something that we're going to be around for a few years, and we still have to do all the permitting. This is just the first step in a very long series of steps. So this is our environmental, the combined picture of our environmental studies. The very first step we do is the critical issues analysis, just sort of an overall that tells us if there's anything on site that we absolutely need to avoid, like this whole thing used to be a cemetery. Well, we probably don't want to build anything on it. So then we just move on. So then our next step is we do the phase 1 environmental site assessment, which looks at all of the historical uses of the site to make sure that there's no contamination or anything like that that needs to be looked at. If there is, they recommend that we do a phase 2. That was not recommended on this site, so there's no contamination that needs to be addressed before we can build on it. The second one is the cultural resources field study. Again, it looks for things like cemeteries or anything that's of historical value. So if there was like a historical barn or something else that was on site that we don't want to disturb, that tells us that. And they actually go out on site physically and do shovel tests and look for things and make sure that there's nothing on site that we need to make sure that we avoid. So that one came back completely clear. The last one was the wetland delineation and threatened and endangered species report. There are 2 non-jurisdictional wetlands on site and a waters of the U.S. stream, jurisdictional stream on the northeast side, which you can see shown in blue. We are completely avoiding the stream and the pond on the right. The pond to the left, if you look at it compared to our site plan, it looks like we're pretty close to it. We're not touching it. So we are not planning on impacting anything regarding the wetlands. And then the threatened and endangered species, there were a couple, there's bats and monarch butterflies. And if you know anything about the threatened and endangered species, pretty much every site that you look at in the United States has bats and monarch butterflies because they can go anywhere in the country. So what you do is if you're going to have any construction during a time in which a bat or butterfly could be on site, you do a very comprehensive study to make sure that there are no bats and butterflies on site. And if there are, you can't do anything. So if we are planning on having any construction during those times, we will make sure that we complete those steps. This is just an example of our layout. I won't go through all of this unless someone asks a question later, and we can. As Lynn mentioned earlier, I'm a site civil engineer, so this is sort of where I spend a lot of my time. We look at the existing site, we look at the topography, we look at where it's draining, we look at the stormwater requirements and make sure that we're complying with all of them, and come up with the best site plan for the area. Something else that we try and avoid is removing any trees unnecessarily. We don't need the whole site. The smart guys that I mentioned over at Siding, they tell us how big we need to be. We're not like typical developers where we need to put as many battery storage containers as we can on the site, or else something bad's going to happen. We just need however many we need, which in this case is 56. So we find where it works best on site so that we're working with the environment and also maximizing our benefit. And that's it for my slide.
Okay, very good. I think the next, very good. I appreciate both presentations. I think the next thing, we got so many people here. I want to make sure we hear. The commission wants to hear from you. We'll be taking notes and making sure that we address things. So if we need to contact you, again, that's why it's important that we know who you are. And did we get our email addresses or addresses on those sign-in sheets? Hopefully you put an email address, or you can still call our office or call Mr. Todd at Planning and Zoning, but we want to make sure we're communicating back and forth. So if you don't hear from us and you need a question answered that you didn't get answered today, feel free to call us anytime, and we'll make sure that we communicate. So let's get the first person up here. We're gonna. Oh, hey, can you turn that back around now? Oh yeah, she's going to answer questions. She's going to speak from this other microphone. Okay. So let's do this first. Any questions that we have for Ms. Carolyn O'Brien, let's go ahead and ask them. She's got her own microphone right here, and she can either stand up, look at you guys, sit there. You're going to be able to hear her. Okay. So first question. Let's raise hands and let's do one at a time. Let's do the closest right there. Okay.
So during your presentation, you made mention of White River, and you mentioned coal power plant, a couple of dams. The substation that you are connecting to is not operated by White River. Although just a couple of miles to the west, there is a substation that's operated by White River. If your plant is intended to service the community near the facility, there's going to be somebody else getting a little bit of extra something out of this, because you're paying Liberty for the electricity that goes into your plant, and then you'll be paying Liberty again to transmit that out. So now White River's going to have to be double paid or being double charged for this electricity. So my question is if your intention was to service the local community, why did you pick a facility that's operated out of a company that's nowhere near this county?
So, can everyone hear me? So, like I said, our slotting guys are the ones that do it, and I can get you a more detailed answer because they analyze the transmission grids, and there's congestion in the grids, and where basically the way I understand it is sort of like where it gets stuck. Like I said, I'm a civil engineer. I can absolutely get you a better answer than this. But that's where they come up with which substation to use. Is there's high side congestion and low side congestion, and where it gets hung up is where we decide.
We would really need to see the dots connected on how the local community and a local company is being best served by a transmission setup that's going through a company that isn't even in the U.S.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Okay, yes.
I'm sorry, John Stevens. I live on Center Road. I've been in Ozark for about 26 years and been in the electric business for over 30. And I, first of all, really appreciate you traveling up here to talk to us, Carolyn, and feel like you've been thrown to the wolves a little bit. But I wanted to jump in and address the last gentleman's question. The electric grid, it's all tied together. That substation at Liberty connects directly to the one owned by White River. Connects, Denixa connects to Springfield, connects down to Arkansas. So I always tell people it's like a swimming pool. We're all on various sides of the swimming pool, and if I want to buy electricity for Brad, he can dump a gallon in, I'll scoop a gallon out. As long as the pool doesn't go dry or run over, everything works. So regardless where this is built, it's going to provide the same benefits. There is a lot of resources and a lot of information that every one of you can go out and look at. I might direct you to start at Southwest Power Pool, spp.org. Reams of information. But I think the point Carolyn was trying to make, there is significant congestion. This area of the grid is historically weak, especially in really cold weather events like we had about a month ago. This would have been a lot safer. It would have helped some of the electric bills that we're all paying in January. I've been in the business, but I'm a consumer just like each and every one of you. So yes, it will have some impact on your prices. It will help keep the lights on. Regardless what your opinion is, and there's a lot of politics. The fact is, federal government is shutting down those coal plants. They're making it harder to build gas plants, but we all keep using electricity and more of it, and it's got to come from somewhere, or we got to learn to live without it. So, please, you're asking the right questions. Please do some homework and keep doing what you're doing. But I think I want to commend the commission for studying this. The best thing we can do is be aware. I've got some more questions, but I want to give them my go.
Sure. Thank you. Let's go front row and then second row, third row. So, ma'am, if you want to go next.
Sure.
Get a little closer up there. People can hear you.
Oh, I've got a big voice. So I'm coming into this very uneducated. So I'm definitely on the fence. I do own property on Old Prospect.
Closer to the phone. Closer, we can hear you.
Honey, I'm right here.
No, but
Turn your hearing aid up.
people. Hey, back there, hear you.
Okay, so I have a private property there, planning on building a very nice home. And I think you said it was only 1,200 feet of it or something like that. Okay. So I have some definite vested interest here. But I guess my overarching question is, you mentioned that, preventing brownouts, blackouts. How many of those have happened maybe in the past 3 years? What is the problem statement that's being addressed. We anticipate such large growth that we need this. But I don't want to be the person that says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I'm just trying to learn.
Absolutely. And we want y'all's questions. We want y'all to feel comfortable. So ask y'all all the questions. So for us, specifically for me in Houston, I don't know if you remember that big winter storm a few years ago. We lost power for 3-4 days. I had just moved into my house in 1972. No a water well. I mean, it was horrible. We didn't have any power. That's what the battery storages are supposed to help with. As we transition to wind and solar, and you can go. There's a website. I have it on my phone because I track it, and specifically for ERCOT, but I'm sure SPP has it too, which is this screen. You can see what the projections are. And so if it's supposed to be really windy or really sunny, and then it's not, and then you get a freeze, then all of a sudden your generation that you thought you were going to get is down here, and the usage is up here, and you have a shortfall. So that's why battery storages are being built all over the country. Really, it's because of the shorts we're built.
What's the track record for Black Mountain in this particular line of energy?
And battery storage. So we're fairly new. So like I said, we were formed in 2021. So we've worked on about 20 projects. We have 4 under construction right now. But like I was saying earlier, the breakers are about a 36-month lead time. So it's not for lack of trying.
You have them show on site?
The contractors and everybody will. So everybody that's under construction, they'd have that. They have the hazard mitigation plan, the spill prevention control and countermeasure plan, which is the OSHA one. And it's if there's any oil stored on site, we have to file a plan. If it spills, what happens, what we do, things like that.
So this will be my last question. The siting guys aren't here. Why not? This is all about where we're moving this.
Yes, so that we are absolutely happy to have more conversations with y'all. So I was already planning on being here today, so I just kept on coming. But absolutely, if we want to do something on Saturday, or because I know y'all talked about on Thursday having more town halls, we will get the people out here to talk to you that need to talk to you.
I lied. I have one more question for the commission.
Okay.
County inspectors, do you have inspectors with experience in this particular industry? And if so, how do we verify that?
Let Mr. Todd answer that.
Yeah, it's me. I've got 25 plus, fully certified, commercial, residential.
And inspecting, but
That's going to be, a lot of that will be third party. So I will make sure that they go by the plans, the pads and the fencing and everything, the plan that they give us, it'll be followed to the letter.
So who approves those plans though? They can give you a plan, you may not know.
This is in the future. I mean, we still don't have everything. But it'll be a third party, engineers will be doing all the tech work. So it'll be looked at.
Just to interject, since we work all over the country, but specifically in Texas, is one of the, I think I sent you guys contact information. We work with some of the fire marshals and inspectors that are sort of on the forefront of the research that's being done. And we're not trying to sneak anything through, or, you don't know about it, so yay. And I provided this fire marshal's contact information to Todd so that, because he's in Resort County, they've done 6 already that are already under operation. And we have one going to construction soon. So we want y'all to learn about it. We want you to know, feel comfortable how to inspect it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your questions. I want to make a comment real quick, and we'll get to the second. Anybody else on the front row? Second row will be next, but let me tell you something. So we are really blessed. This county is extremely blessed because we've got a gentleman, Mr. Bill Amtower, who is our emergency management director. He's not just the best in Missouri. He's recognized as one of the best in the United States. And so he, along with Mr. Matheny, our fire chief, one of the best around, those guys would also be working with this energy company, storage company, and working on different types of drills and things, making sure that everything is safe. And so we are really blessed that we've got these type of people, quality people, and our inspector that can do what they need to do to keep our area safe. Okay, row 2. Row 2. We're going to go from row 2, 3, 4, all the way back. If you want to speak, you have to come up here and speak. Row 2. Anybody? Okay, come on.
Yeah. You go first.
I'm Bob E. Steps, Spartan, Missouri, and I would like to ask, the environmental study is supposed to be from the state and the federal government. There has been like other places, like when foot and mouth disease anthrax was put out of Plum Island in Manhattan, Kansas, cost the United States citizens $45 million to put in medical college. They said they had that impact. They didn't, they lied. We need to see that in writing. We need to see that in writing, not just say, hey, we did it. Because I've seen here on the board, where they're supposed to have this or that done, and we'd like to see this in writing, where, because it becomes mandated, where whoever makes the decision has come to a battery company here in Christian County. Oh, we don't know where it's at right now. We need to see this before it's entered in by parties. Because the legal contract is when you sign it and it's over with. Sometimes when this environmental studies is not, depends on who does it. He said, we got the best. That's good. But we need to see it in writing, not just say, hey, we're just told it was. Okay. Thank you.
That's another good point. Thank you. I think as we go along, you're exactly right. We want every T crossed, every I dotted. We want that in writing, and we'll continue to research and make that happen. Next person on row 2.
Hi, my name's Gretchen Harity. Can you tell me if you're getting any federal subsidies at all or government funding?
We're not on this project.
Not on this project, but you have on others.
Sometimes we apply for tax abatements, but in this case, we're not.
You talk about the buffers and the environmental things. What would happen if there was a runaway thermal fire, which is characteristic of these battery storage?
So if there's a runaway thermal fire, typically the scenario is just to let it burn. So the way that these things propagate is actually if you put water on them. So if one of the cells or units or modules or whatever catches on fire, the standard practice is to just let it go and it will burn itself out.
Sometimes it doesn't though.
Right. So I can provide you with more specific studies if you'd like. I can provide those to Todd and we can distribute them. But from my knowledge, speaking with the fire gurus, is that there is no better way to do it. We do have the dry agent. It's, you know how you have the wet fire extinguishers and the dry ones? They have the dry ones.
So it's not true then that water is still the primary way of trying to put these fires out?
That is
Not true. Has any of these storage units been sold to foreign companies that you've built?
I am not positive. I would have to ask. I'm sorry, I will follow up.
Okay, and one more. When you were doing your research on this, did you do any research on those who are opposed to these sorts of things in their communities? Do you look at like another side to it at all, or were you simply going by what you were told from the company and tax breaks? And
I was independently trained.
Because there's a lot of information about the dangers of these storage units, a whole lot.
There absolutely is. I was researching in general without looking for a side to support or.
Okay, but when you presented last week, you gave no negative, none. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much. And I'm trying to write it down. I'm sure other people are too. All these questions, I know Ms. Carolyn's writing them down too. We need to, all these questions, we're going to get the answers to you all and get them communicated back. Go ahead and come up, sir.
I'll be brief because I already had my turn, but I did have a couple of follow-ups. I saw a conflict between the two presentations. I think, Todd, the information you presented said this was a 2-hour project, but I believe Carolyn's slide showed 4 hours. And I don't know if anybody has the...
It's a 4-hour. That may have been something that we updated.
So 300 megawatt hours.
Yeah, 75 megawatt.
Okay. And And to put it in context for folks, I mean, 75 megawatts, that's about 8 to 10,000 houses, depending on how much they're using, but only for 4 hours. So, like in that cold weather event, it would be a big help for 4 hours, but 4 hours after it starts, your battery's dead and you've got to wait until you find an opportunity to charge it. So, it's not the answer to every problem, but it's a help. Is this the only project in Missouri that Black Milton's working on?
Yes, sir. We have another project in Kansas City.
Kansas City. Okay, thank you. And long-term plans, are you an operator or just a developer?
So we have partners that are operators that we work with. The thing that we run into is that it's the long lead time, it's the capital investment. So we're partnering with not a lot of different, but a couple different companies in order to bring these online.
Okay, and just, one point of information for everyone. The website I mentioned earlier, they've got a lot of detailed information about, projects in their footprint. And I did a quick look last week, and I think there's about a half dozen similar projects in southern Missouri. I know it's one in Carthage, one up by Greenville, and I think maybe one down between Aurora and Reed Springs, somewhere in that area. But, like I said, I just want to keep a level head about this and think about it, because whether we build an Ozark or not, they're coming. And, we want to take advantage of the good and try to minimize the bad. Thank you.
Okay, good comments. Anybody else over there? Okay, you two, and then we go over to that side.
Good morning. My name is David Cruson. I live at 3941 Elk Valley Road, probably less than 1,000 feet from the project site. Red-tailed hawks add into the list of endangered species in that area. Sometimes, with one or more bald eagles, they utilize the area. I have a picture of one in my pasture. Any questions? Noise. I understand these battery facilities give off a humming sound. How far away can you hear that sound? How will it affect wildlife as well as people?
So we've had to do noise studies for other projects, and typically it's not much louder than the existing substation. They give off the noise that comes from it is from the cooling. So the noise at the property line, it's hard because we actually do engineering studies for it, so I can't give you a yes or this many decibels. I can tell you that the one that I showed the site plan for Milwaukee, they do a site study for, and we're at less than 55. Don't quote me on that. Decibels at the property line where those houses are, which was less than which is I think equal to the substation. So obviously I don't have all those facts right on the top of my head. I can.
Okay, well, I've been doing some research myself on these facilities. And in recent years, there has been a significant increase in fires related to battery energy storage systems, BESS. The fires can be attributed to various factors such as thermal runaway, manufacturing defects, battery damage, and improper installation. Thermal runaway is a dangerous chain reaction that can occur with lithium-ion batteries, leading to overheating, gas generation, and even explosions. So high ambient temperatures. So we do know that sometimes it gets pretty hot around here. Traditional fire suppression systems and firefighting techniques and procedures may be ineffective and can cause additional harm. Chemical releases can also contribute to liquid pollution when mixed with firefighting water, thereby contaminating soil or groundwater. And I have a well. My big worry is what happens if my well gets contaminated. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Okay, come on up, ma'am.
My name is Joyce Cousin. My husband and I live at Green Oaks, which is going to be pretty close to your place. I'm concerned about the contamination of the water because I have done some research and they claim that that does happen. Now, you did not touch on it, and I don't believe you touched on it, sir. But I would like to know exactly what kind of contamination we are looking at. And I appreciate all of the commissioners and all the hard work they've done. But at Green Oaks, Elk Valley, we live in rural Missouri. We do not have a fire station there. We have to depend on the main fire station. What is this going to do to our house insurance? Because you guys, Black Mountain does have a history of fire because lithium batteries are very dangerous and they have to be done right. So I would like answers to those questions. And I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate all the commissioners' work. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your hard work. And thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Come on up, sir.
Hi, I'm Rick Lamb. I live in Elk Valley State. During your presentation, you mentioned training for. Is your company going to fund that training? Sheriff, fire?
Yes.
Okay. If the fire department or somebody needs a special piece of equipment, will you fund that? Will your company fund it?
Yes, we should.
And I like the idea of the bond cleaned up afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shalane. Okay, over there. Yes. Come on up, sir.
Good morning. My name is Ron Rinke. I represent the Woodridge subdivisions, which is within a mile from this facility, which is Woodridge South, and Woodridge Estates. We have talked about this. I do have quite a few questions. I did submit by the deadline of last Tuesday the topic of questions that I'm going to ask. So I do ask for some patience. Questions I ask may or may not answer some of the other questions. So again, I'm just going to go off somewhat of an agenda that I gave to you folks last week. Some of these questions have already been answered. They may be redundant. I may ask them again just for emphasis. We did meet as a neighborhood last Sunday, which is 50 plus households. After I speak, I am going to ask Rose Bergman to also speak on specific responses that we got from virtually every resident in the area as well. I'll give the technical side, she'll give the personal side. So some of these, like I said, have already been asked. Why is the facility being considered? And some of that was already answered with in order to subsidize any type of brownout and blackout. That's fine. Some of the questions associated with Liberty Electric and with White River, of course, we're interested on how the interaction and with the how the grid sharing could go with that. We've already answered the question about the cost. It's about $100 million. Personally, a lot of our questions, we don't see fluctuations. So when we're still rural, but we're 50 plus houses. Our question is, we don't see that. So it must be happening someplace else other than our immediate area. And this is a large facility. I mean, it's a very large facility. 56 semi truck size batteries at that type of wattage. That's fairly good size to either subsidize the current energy. You know, are there any plans of in the area developing any type of renewable energy? Will there be this is probably more of a question for up here as far as solar or wind turbines. Or is it strictly for current loads?
I have been approached by different consulting firms individually in my office, asking what our tolerance would be, pardon me, in the community for renewable energy. It's our topography on my side of the county, the east side is not conducive. I mean, there's a lot of hills. So trying to put in a solar facility would be difficult because of the amount of hills that we have.
So run the face to the south.
Yeah, and so I mean that's one of those things that we're obviously going to reach out into the community and ask for input, like this meeting here. And I don't want anyone to think that we are going to be making a decision on this anytime soon. At least I'm not prepared to. I think another couple of meetings like this, getting input, getting the answers back to the community. But there are, especially with this administration in Washington, D.C., there is a big, huge push for alternative energy sources. And they're looking anywhere and everywhere where they can put these in place. So they are looking at Southwest Missouri, and they have come into Christian County asking those questions.
It was already answered as far as any government subsidies that could be available from this. At this time, you're saying these are funded by means other than government subsidies, correct? Okay. Anybody can go. I mean, Black Mountain Energy is an Australian company, correct?
No, we're based out of, we're based out of Boston, but our parent company is based out of Fort Worth.
For some reason, I'm assuming Black Mountain Energy originated from Australia.
Black Mountain has several companies, and they have a nickel mine, I believe, in Australia. That might be it's Black Mountain Nickel.
Same owner though, right?
Yeah, Black Mountain owns all the but yeah, they're out of Fort Worth.
And with who's going to be funding? Anybody can go on and look to see how companies are doing and so forth. I did. How is this going to be funded?
It's all privately funded.
Privately funded. Okay. So it's not going to be funded through utilities such as White River or Liberty.
No, we have to prepare interconnection studies with Liberty, where we tell them what we want to put in and how we're going to connect, and then they tell us how much we need to pay basically to connect to their substation and then their upgrades included. Kind of like I said before, we have a guy that does all this, he does the interconnection stuff. So if you'll have really specific questions with interconnection, I can always break.
Okay. And again, you mentioned some, we all know that back in 2021, there were issues down in Texas with the stress and strain on the power system. You guys are based out of Texas. You brought up the example of this would have helped their situation. I guess bluntly, of course, we're not Texas. I like to think that we manage our utilities better than they had with theirs. So, again, our perspective, maybe other people in the room, we don't see things that Texas sees as far as outages and brownouts and blackouts because of their lack of planning on cold winter. So, keep that in mind. Another thing that, and what we'll get into it, as far as the standards and guidelines and regulations, as far as commissioning, decommissioning, you had said that there will be a series of bonding that will be required by Black Mountain or the facility owner or the landowner to assure that if decommissioning is required as a result of an accident or financial issues. Could you explain that again, how that bonding, so I mean, again, it's a large facility, if it goes to bone, that's quite the undertaking to decommission. The bonding, how the cost would be taken care of.
I think we would have to look to estimate that total cost. Have professionals review that estimate.
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
We would require an estimate of that cost, have that reviewed by professionals in the field, and the mechanism and so forth. We would rely on our legal counsel, who's present. They will speak on that.
Sure. So we'd have a bond in place. The idea would be that we'd have a bond in place for decommissioning. Like Todd said, it would be equivalent to the amount that we believe it would take to decommission the project. To the extent where if they decommission and they fail to do something, I don't know what we would be able to draw upon that bond upon the county's request. It would be generally how that would work.
So those who couldn't hear, it's under review at the point in time, based on the finances.
Well, we don't have a bond in place now. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking how will it be done to assure that when it's fully functional?
Yeah, so no, we don't have a specific number in place for the bond right now. That's correct.
Quick math, 300 megawatt hours is about 250,000 car batteries. Put it in perspective. Trivia, it won't be on the test. Natural Bridge LLC, they're the current landowners. Would they still maintain the ownership of the facility? Who would be the owner at that point?
So we would think.
We also, and again, just going through the bullet points, financial cost and burden to county residents. We already talked about who does the system serve. It serves the collection of the utilities. I know White River is a co-op, and then Liberty is a public utility. I think we're pretty clear on how and who that serves. Does any of this power sharing go outside of those two, say down in northwest Arkansas or southwest Missouri?
From my understanding of how the transmission grid works, it's all of SPP. But that would really be a question for the interconnection and transmission guys. I can follow up with that.
Okay. As far as our immediate, most folks here are White River, I think. Springfield, they're Liberty. Is that okay. All these voices. Thank you. Will there be agreements with some of these adjacent utility companies if they're going to benefit from this backup service? Is there a type of buy-in that they have to go with that?
I'm not sure I understand your question. So there's Liberty Electric, who owns a substation. Then there's SPP, which is like a whole grid, like ERCOT. So we work with Liberty Electric to interconnect. So if there's other companies that are part of the SPP family, I imagine that I would really have to follow up.
I think, I don't know if I'm saying it very clear, but there's a cost. You say it's going to be funded by private funds. There are going to be operational costs, maintenance costs, regulation costs, inspection costs, environmental costs in the event that something small big happens. Somebody's going to be paying for that. Will that, it's not going to be free.
Typically that's us.
Okay. Somebody has to pay you.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So you kind of see what I'm saying is we pay for electricity. The bottom line is, should we expect our utility bills to go up specifically because of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next point is Christian County involvement. Where I live, since I've been there, City of Ozark has brought out provided water to our area. So we're not specifically on community wells, but we did have to have an agreement that since city water came out, that in the event that they wanted to annex, there's no vote. That was just part of it. How is the City of Ozark involved in this in the intention that water will need to be provided in that area? As far as, do they plan on annexing this in when they bring the water out? Does anybody talk to the City of Ozark?
The only way to annex would be to be compact and contiguous. So this facility is not compact and contiguous to the current city limits. It's in the urban service area of what my future city limits would be. But at this time, it doesn't meet the muster, if you will, to be annexed into the city until the adjacent properties to the north would be included. What you were speaking of, you have an irrevocable consent annex because you have city services. So should the city ever bring sewer out to you, which could happen, then you would be automatically annexed into the system. Yes.
And I really said that backwards. water will need to be brought out to this facility, and the most capable utility for that volume of water that might be required is going to come from the city of Ozark.
I'm not sure that they're required to have water on that site.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into it. Liberty Electric, we talked about them. Environmental, EPA, Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Some folks were asking, how does EPA get involved as far as a federal organization? I do have associations with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources as I'm a water distribution operator certified to the DNR. I have talked to them. They do have an interest. They don't have specific jurisdiction, but they are interested to make sure that hazardous issues are accounted for as far as whether it be fire mitigation or other types of groundwater. There are certain things. So I can't really say that they will be involved, but I definitely do have their interest.
Sir, I tell you what, I didn't realize you're going to go that long. So how many other people, raise your hand, how many people want to speak? I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. So yeah. So I'm going to cut you off, but hey, we're willing to stay after. I don't know what time you have to fly back, but we're here all day. Okay. So we're going to stay, but I want to make sure I get as many people to speak as I can. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, sir. Yes, you.
Excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse, so I'll try to keep it clear as I can. My name's John Brees, and I live in Oak Valley State, just north of Old Prospect Road. And I'm not an electrical engineer, but I'm a software system, and I've done failure mode analysis. And I did my research on some of the things that are concerns about these types of facilities and concerns that are probably should be part of the analysis and that we're all concerned about. But we have like 3 points. First of all, Black Mountain Energy. The Black Mountain, it's a subsidiary of Black Mountain, EME on the Australian Stock Exchange. And they have been buying 3 times per. They have had pre-notices of infringements by the ASIC for false and misleading statements about sustainability around creating a natural gas project with net zero carbon emissions and greenhouse emissions. Their website states that they are an energy and resources company, Black Mountain Energy, seeking to lease or purchase land, build battery storage facilities. So they're a land acquisition.
Can you make sure you speak a little bit louder?
Oh, okay. So they're a land acquisition company. They get investors to pay for the things, and they buy the contractors to install it, buy the units from the manufacturer. I'm curious as to who is the manufacturer of these units. Another concern here I have has to do with motivation. Black Mountain did a project in Harlingen, Texas. Chairman of Planning and Zoning was against it, but the commission's decision was based mainly on the property tax revenues that the plant generated. And she reviewed said the plant would generate somewhere around $2.6 million in the first 10 years. And then DMA could replace the batteries as appreciated, send the taxpayers begin out of depreciation. So that's all good for the county, but its motivation is unclear. Also, there's a few myths about battery storage energy systems that I picked up that I can relate. One is about the standards for risk SOPs in the industry. It's an industry in infancy, and so policy creation, they don't have a lot of standards to base it on. So it's still in, still a work in progress. The standards are failure rates These things are not well known and published. So that's another thing that needs to go into that understanding of failure rates. Lithium-ion fires are not like other fires. Planning that's needed. And people mentioned thermal runaway and due to damage, extreme temperatures, aging, poor maintenance, so on. There could be violent ejection of gas, shrapnel, smoke, fire, and potential explosion. They're hard to extinguish. And the current guidance is, like Carolyn said, keep a safe distance, cool the other units with water, and let it burn out. So there's where we need the water. Another point is that damaged batteries are not a threat, but defects can cause overheating and pressure, and derivatives can leak out and they be combustible and ignite. And one last point here is the structures don't need to be designed for explosion hazards. It's a myth. Fires and explosions entirely possible and must be planned for. And explosion control is required by fire code. So those are the main points, and those are concerns, and I think everybody here, I think they should all be worked into risk analysis. So that's all.
Okay, I appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. You want to go? And I tell you what, and let's try not to repeat the same things over again as we continue on. Here's what I want you to do. Everybody that wants to, make sure that you email either to planning and zoning or to the commission, to one of us. Email us things that you, even if you've spoken today, I'd still appreciate another email. We've got a bunch of emails. We've got a lot of emails. These are important. These are important because we can go back and look at them, take notes. What you're saying today is real important, but let's try not to replicate things. Let's try to, if we can, do something new.
So I'm Wade Stokes. I live on Shady Lane. I'm on a well. I'm one of the few houses in the Woodbridge subdivision that is not on city water. So I do have a groundwater interest there. But to your point on using the swimming pool analogy, my point when I came up earlier was to talk about the economy of where this is being put. Every time somebody scoops a gallon of water out of that pool and hands it off to somebody else, that first person gets paid. So how do we expect the citizens of the local community to benefit from an installation like this, where we're going to have to accept the health and safety risks and the possible property value risk of having this in our backyard? When by the time the electricity gets to our home, if we needed it, it's had to pass through more hands than it should, considering that there was a local community alternative.
Thank you. Very good comment. Who's next? Yeah, go ahead, sir, and then the lady next on the other side of the phone.
I'll try to make this fast. My name is Roger Ford. I'm actually from Nixa, but I've been an electrician all my life, and I've been involved in alternative energy for 40 years. And in this region, and analyzing what can be used and can't be used. One thing I think needs to be analyzed is why they're saying that no government money is going to be involved. I just don't see that that's the case. Somehow the government is instigating this project. I know Liberty will have to sell power to them at wholesale. Are they going to be able to buy it back at wholesale, or is the price jumped up? The federal government, Barbadia's state, actually makes those requirements. So, and then too, on ownership, if like it was said, this is just an acquisition company, is the buyer going to be using government incentives. That's all I'll say on that. The other thing is has any of the council actually talked to Liberty to see what their view is on this, whether they even want it? I don't know whether they want it or not. The other thing is, if there is a need in this region, the Southwest Power Pool, why was the city utilities plant at the Springfield Lake destroyed? It was destroyed because the federal government basically required them to do it. And that, since then, we do have a little bit of a deficit because the government forced us to shut a good working power plant, and they insisted on it to be destroyed. They even gave the city an incentive to destroy it so it could not be refurbished and rebuilt. Really, that's probably all I need to add. I've got other things here that's already been talked about.
Thank you very much. Very good comments. Those are the kind of things I'd like for you to email too. I really appreciate you coming up. So, ma'am, come on up.
Danielle Palmer. I had talked to Todd via email, and he told me that Christian County was not going to have any control over the project, so I'm just confused about who you're actually going into business with here. It's just Black Mountain Energy. Yeah, but you're going into business with Liberty Utilities because you're not going into business with Christian County. We have to work with Liberty Utilities because we're connecting to their substation. Right. So they're basically going to be working with you. Christian County has no say-so on anything other than this portion of agreeing to this, on what goes on with your plant and with Liberty Utilities, correct? No, once, or if we get this approval, we still have to go through the actual permitting process. I mean, once it's commissioned, once the whole thing is commissioned, Christian County won't have any say-so. We still have to comply with general inspections and things like that. Well, inspections, yeah, but they don't. Christian County itself doesn't actually own this facility. Correct. They do not. Okay, that's sorry. I just clear that up. So you guys basically have no say. So you don't actually wouldn't be controlled. Like wanted to decommission it, they wouldn't be able to do it. Christian County, correct? I mean, I imagine if we weren't following codes, they could shut us down like any. But if you were following codes, but maybe there was a fire that broke out, and they said, "Hey, we need to rethink this storage facility," they wouldn't be able to control the shutting down of the facility, right? And maybe more of a question for y'all's legal. Well,
I think the only thing that we would be able to do would be able to put those conditions in the a plan that we put forward. So if this is to go forward, I'm going to put that right there. If this is to go forward, we would have the ability to put conditions in place. You would have to have buffering. You would have to have whatever mitigation processes. If it becomes decommissioned, and you fail to be able to pull it off, we have that bond capacity to draw that bond to do it ourselves with their money, obviously. So those conditions could be built into that agreement to allow this to be used for a public utility site. So we could put any condition we want to on that. If they fail to live up to the conditions that are put on that, then we could shut them down, yes.
My concern with putting it as a public utility site is that they have a lot more leeway in things that they can do, and it's harder to shut down a public utility than it is, say, a business that is not doing the right thing. So that would be my concern with that. Okay. I also wanted to address the woman in Mustard that had asked if any foreign companies own them. They actually sold a 700 megawatt portfolio to Swiss banking group UBS in August 2022. Basically, Black Mountain Energy sells and repackages these battery storage facilities to investors. Okay, they talk about being good neighbors, but they're actually just buying and selling to different investors and things like that. They don't actually own and operate any of these facilities. Do you? Not at this time, no. No, you don't. But you've had all these multiple projects that you've had, but they've all been sold to investors, right?
The ones in the past have, yes. All of them. So that's pretty much all the ones that you've done.
We have several projects in the works right now.
Right, and in fact, you even have sold the storage facilities to investors before they've even been commissioned and gone up and run.
Yeah, several of them are under construction.
So you guys don't actually own and operate any of them. Just so everybody knows, it's about investing and making money. The reason for the standalone battery storage facilities is because of the failure of the renewable energies. They're not able to provide the energy and the electricity, so they have to have these monstrosity containers put all over the country so that they can pretend like their green energy and their clean energy is actually supplying electricity to the country. And I think it's disingenuous that they want to call themselves good neighbors when it's a bunch of bullshit, because they are making money off of buying and selling the electricity on a wholesale market. They're not spending $100 million here because they're good neighbors. They're spending it because they can make a lot of money. ERCOT, everybody heard about when they were charging $3,000 a kilowatt hour for the electricity during the storm. It's things like that. That can happen here. This facility is not going to be sitting by waiting for use for our county, for the people here. That energy is going to be sold all over. And I don't know, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Where's the next person on this side? Okay, sir, I saw your hand go up. Way over on the wall. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we'll get you next.
My name's Gary Casalo. I live a couple of miles downwind from this proposed facility to the south. And I would like to defer my question to the end, even though I'm not at the back of the room, on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Commissioners, and Blackwood. I think there should be just granted we do not have all the information yet, obviously, to make a decision, but I think before we leave today, I'm going to ask for a show of hands of how many people here are in favor of this project and how many people are against the project, just so you guys have a feel for what's going on with it.
Thank you very much. Okay, who's next? Okay, sir, come on up.
You can just call me pissed off. I don't like the idea of having 56 potential bombs in my house. It's not a quarter mile to Elk Valley from where you were showing those pictures.
Speak into the
microphone, please. Sure. How's that? They got a bad mind. This right here, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a picture of my front window. See the substation there? That's what I get to see. I don't want to see that. And I don't care what kind of vegetation. I don't want the potential of the danger that these things risk to my house, to my family, to any animals out there, to any of the wildlife out there. I enjoy being out there. We looked at 100 homes before we moved out there. We don't want this crap everywhere. A lot of people live on board. You? Would you? Live right next door to one?
I live in the city of Houston, so.
You live by all kinds of crap. I'm sorry. But you're not a neighbor here. If you're a neighbor here, you'd be treated well. Because these folks around here treat everyone nice. Except for, Todd here on the phone. Yeah, you were rude to me the other day. Remember the guy who said, I thought the notification, your mic sucks. Your notification radius should be more than 1,000 feet. Because there's houses out there that are within like 1,200 feet. And that's not a half mile, Todd. I have Google Earth. I can do those little lines, and it makes it really easy. From my property line to there. 1,200 feet. Okay, we should have been notified. We should have had more time. I spent probably 60 hours this past week researching this. I have 8 pages of notes. I'm not going to get an answer to all these questions, am I? But I'll submit them to you, and you can make them public record, okay?
Yeah. So, sir, anybody that sends us an email, we're going to put them back on our website. Everyone can see them. We're going to answer them to the best of our ability. And so, no, we're going to pay attention to your emails. They are important.
And, I want to give a quote from Black Mountain's website. We focus on investing in communities. That part sounds great. And markets where energy storage will provide long-term
value to stakeholders. Does it say anything about the community? No, the value is to the stakeholders, right?
I think they have to make community stakeholders.
Nice try.
Sorry.
Yeah, you probably wasn't expecting that. You know, you've got water contamination potential because they won't have a couple wells out there. If it gets into the aquifer, guess what? Do you know where Ozark water comes from? It comes from wells. What is the whole city and county going to do then? You know, this is potential. It is in its infancy, but you know, there are multiple fires everywhere about these things, and we've discussed this before. But nobody mentioned that South Korea had banned these things because they had so many fires. Did you know that? Yeah, do some research. I'm not trying to be crass to you, but you know, you're not a neighbor. I'm nice to my neighbors. Seismic impact studies, did you do any of that? We do have minor earthquakes and vibrations. That's what the batteries up. Again, you have more. And don't get me on the habitat because I love the nature out there and I won't even go. But you know, the environmental studies, you know, that's a great impact to study those things. It's important. I appreciate that. But who did the study? And you cannot foresee future events. You don't know what kind of contaminants are going to get into the water. You don't know. You don't know what the fire suppression system, the things are. But I can tell you from medical history that lithium is a neurotoxin. Cobalt is a neurotoxin. Do you want your kids drinking that water? 50%. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I'm looking in your direction.
Yeah, and that's fine. We're starting to lose some people, so I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity.
I get you.
To speak, and I would love to have your questions submitted. And so
I wrote more of a statement than
I'd love to have the opportunity to read that. I want everybody to know that this conversation's in its infancy as well. We're not going to be making a decision, I hope, for a month or two, maybe even longer, because I personally want to be able to get every single piece of data I can on them. This information that was presented to us last week was the first time we've really looked at this.
Yeah,
so
we got kind of a short notice, and it was irritating to us.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
And actually, we only got notification because a neighbor texted me, not because my good neighbor sent me a notice in the mail.
Well, I think to defend Todd in this, 1,000 feet is the required by law.
It's required by law, but the county can go above and beyond.
We can, and we probably should. Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all.
We're all good neighbors here, right? So we want each other to be, to support one another. We want to lift one another up, and we certainly don't want people uneducated about this stuff.
Absolutely, I think that knowledge is key, and I think that that's what we're trying to do with this.
But I'm going to wrap it up real quick here. But noise pollution, we have a neighbor who is hypersensitive to noise. When the substation expanded out there, they started hearing the humming. I didn't hear it. Honestly, I didn't. But they did because they're so hypersensitive to it. And they asked me to talk about this because it's going to get even worse. I can hear my neighbors up probably half mile, 3/4 mile down the road talking in their yard from my yard down below. Sound travels through there. Okay? Has that been impacted? Has that been studied?
Yeah, we have done numerous studies on this project.
Obviously, it doesn't matter what we think because we're such good neighbors. So one last thing, I'm left questioning the validity of any of the reports you guys have given. I looked at the title of one of the reports, and it was titled Chick-fil-A Wauwatosa Project Narrative dated 11/9/22. Why would that be titled that? Did you guys copy and paste?
Yeah, that was actually from our Wisconsin project from our attorney. Sorry.
Yeah, that was great.
Well, we did a narrative.
We feel so special that they decided that copy and paste was good.
I apologize for that. I do.
See, now that what that does is that brings down to everything that you say. Do you understand that?
I'm sorry. I did a save as the document. That was all.
That's fine. But you did do a good sales pitch. I applaud you for that. But again, I'm going to remind you, this Black Mountain Energy, they want to provide this long-term value to stakeholders, not to the community, not to your neighbors.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Great. Yeah, there you go.
I'll try not to be redundant and repeat a bunch of stuff. There's 3 fires going on at these kind of facilities in New York right now, 2 places. You're aware of that? Okay. So you say you're going to monitor these things. How?
So there's an energy management system that monitors it. I personally don't know like the technical specifications for it.
Is it
It's
Wi-Fi, landline?
Monitor, I don't know that specifically, but I can find out for you.
Because if anybody in this area knows that I have AT&T and I know sometimes.
I can definitely find out.
Okay, yeah. And the other thing is, I'm concerned with everything else that everybody says. The same concerns where I live. I'm sorry, my name is Paul Crow and I live on Covers Bridge Road. And all that water comes right down and goes right by my house, underneath the road and all that. I've been told it eventually ends up in one of the rivers and then ends up in Little Rock. So there's leaching. If there's a fire, all that toxic fumes, gas, all that stuff is going to come down that valley. And if there's water that's been affected, it's all going to come down. Not only our wells, but it's going to affect all the other waterways.
So to some extent, so when we grade the site, we are capturing the water that falls on site and putting it into a pond.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We are grading the site, capturing the on-site water, then putting it into a pond. I know that doesn't address all of your questions, but it doesn't run straight into the creek. So say there's a fire and it does drain, we do have a chance to treat it to where it is gone. It's not just like it runs off site immediately and oops, right? We definitely have a place where we can treat it if something happens.
But some of it's still going to get.
I really can't speak to that.
So I guess the question to you gentlemen would be, has there been a DNR report made on this facility? And the effects that it would have?
We relied on the studies that they provided to us.
They they provided?
Yes.
So have you had a DNR report done?
I think he's just talking about the environmental, the wetland and the team.
That's public.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the rest of my stuff I'll submit online.
Okay, so listen to this. Before we lose anybody else, and I know it's been a while, but we still got time. How many people raise your hand if you're just against this project at this point? Okay. All right. How many people at this point would be for the project? How many people would be on the fence and just need more information? Okay. All right. All right. Well, I think, that's pretty obvious. And so I just wanted to make sure we get that across. We've all seen this. We've seen it. And we're hearing you. Okay. Now let's go to who's next? Okay. Way back there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. What was your name, Paul?
My name is Todd Stansel. I am a real estate appraiser. I live in the Woodridge South subdivision. And everybody's concern, and I agree, is the environmental impact and any types of tax increases due to anything the county's got to do, what the city has to do to make improvements in this place to be there. But one of the things I'm not here, which Lane alluded to, was property value impact. And has there been any study that you're aware of the impact of property values due to the plan?
Nothing aware.
Okay. So this is my thing. This is what I look at every day.
And what I'm concerned about is the reduction in market value of our properties because of the plants or because whatever you want to call it. Is there anybody from the assessor's office here?
He was unable to attend.
Okay. Has there been any consideration in the reduction in value, market value, and potential tax appeals and loss in tax revenue from a decreasing property values because of
I am not 100% sure if that is part of his question. He does have some questions about the property. I mean, one of the benefits that was stated earlier was an increase in property tax value for the call them stakeholders, all the taxing districts. But he still doesn't have enough information even with regards to that because he's not sure if it's going to be assessed as real estate, if these are permanent structures, which obviously after seeing this plan, they're not permanent structures, so then it would be personal property, which is going to depreciate at a more rapid pace and is taxed at a much lower value. So without knowing good hard numbers of what they're going to be presenting as the potential to be on this property, he doesn't even know what that impact would even calculate out to be. So he's very interested in this, but had prior engagement that wasn't able to come over here today.
So my question is not necessarily whether or not this property is going to generate the county gain tax.
Sure.
It's whether or not we're going to be losing value in our properties due to its existence. And as well as if we're losing property value, then essentially it could create a tax appeal problem for the county, which also reduces your.
Yeah, absolutely. There's very few things, if ever, very much of anything that would reduce the value of property. This might be considered one of those, or any type of structure of this nature, that's being put in place. So that's a great concern. Absolutely. Typically, property values will always go up.
That's the hope.
There's always,
not for me, but
yeah,
for you guys.
Well, for anybody. I mean, I hope my property value goes up that I own, obviously, because I may be able to sell it at some point in time and reap that benefit. But there are always going to be the anomalies that will cause property values to go down. So definitely that is a point of consideration.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you very much. So, who's next? Okay, you stood up. Come on up.
Morning, I'm Carl Newhart. We live down on Goldenrod Road. I heard a lot of the answers from some of the questions I had. You said the containers are sealed containers. They aren't made for maintenance type. I will tell you that I've had interfaces with lithium-ion before. We had them in the service. I've seen what they do firsthand. I've seen what they do when they do overheat, overrun, contaminate the atmosphere, and also explosions, that type of stuff. So what do you do, and what have you done? I see you had a redundant system for identifying fires and stuff. What do you do for shutdown? You have a redundant system for shutdown? Are they separate? Is each box in series? Are they, so if one goes up, does the other shut down automatically so you don't have that problem?
I would need to follow up with you on that.
And you have off-gassing problems whenever you have charging batteries. Lithium-ion are terrible for that. What do you do for the atmosphere as far as testing? I know whenever we had a problem, everything was tested. If you thought you had a problem, you were 5,000 feet upwind, evacuated. What type of, you said you have great emergency management, which is going to be needed. If you have a problem with off-gassing and you have to evacuate, where's your 5,000 foot corridor, which is the minimum for getting out of a contaminated atmosphere?
I did actually speak to my engineer about that one, and he said that the newer lithium-ion batteries don't use as toxic heavy metals anymore, and so the off-gassing is not as much of a concern. And if they do catch on fire, then it's typically dissipated by the time it gets to the property line. But I can ask him for the study.
I would like to see him. I'd like to see that the information you have saying that that's the case, because I don't believe it.
Yeah, I would.
Right. And the last thing I say is, you guys are going to have a tough decision to make. You see what the people want, And we all have to worry about technology and it's gonna creep in. But if you can't do it safely, and if you can't protect the people around it, and make sure that there are plans in place, that if there isn't, it's not if there's gonna be an emergency, it's when. You need to plan for that. You need to make sure that everybody is in the know of what goes on and how it's taken care of. You building these things and selling it to someone else, I understand the dollar, and everybody wants to make a dollar. But if you don't do it the right way, and you don't do it in a way that you take care of the people afterwards, it's bad money, and it's not money that's made.
Thank you, sir. Hey, thanks for your service. Thanks for all the veteran service there in this building. Let's go on this side. Okay. It's Jeannie.
I did check the assessor's map. The north boundary of this property adjoins the city limits. Has the city been involved in this? When I checked the city maps on the city's website, they have not been updated since 2022. But the assessor's map does show that the north boundary adjoins the city limits.
Good to know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So.
Because they're not able to provide utility services to the property, they would not be interested in it.
So, yeah. Okay, gentleman in the white shirt, please come on up. So what Mr. Todd just said is that the city can't supply utilities out there at that point, at this time, so they're not interested.
Commissioners, thank you for your patience. Ms. Caroline, thank you for being here. I'll try to limit my comments specifically to points that have not been addressed that I've heard specifically. My name is Tim Harris. I reside at 2601 South 7th Avenue. That is the Rainy South subdivision, specifically to the northeast. Talking about the construction, specifically with this, how much do the individual units weigh? If you know.
I don't know it off the top of my head, but they don't require any special permit. That's
well,
like HS20 limit.
Okay. My concern for that specifically, I would raise for the commission to consider is the limited road capacity simply at this site. I was here when the substation that is adjacent to it was built. We had some significant road damage. They had to take it down W Highway, then come down Old Prospect simply because of the size of the transformer with that. These are very small county roads that lead into this. I think we need to consider what could be the infrastructure damage to our road system based upon the heavy equipment that's going to be needed for construction. Second question, it's my understanding that there will be required an independent substation for the inverter power that's needed. What is the height of that substation? I read in your, I believe it's 45 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so generally it's fairly low, but then there's a couple structures that point up. I could get you a diagram, but nothing is greater than 45 feet, except possibly like.
Okay.
But most of it is fairly low.
My point being is that Todd, I think you showed us some pictures of 9 feet. Well, that's just the units themselves. The substation is going to be 45 feet, have structures up that high. It's going to have a visual impact that has not been addressed. Caroline, I asked you also, do you know the operational range temperature-wise?
I don't, I apologize.
I've done some research on this. Specifically, temperature range on these units, the best units, start to degrade at 105 degrees Fahrenheit. They become inoperational between 112 and 115 degrees. Vice versa, in cold, specifically, they begin to degrade at, I believe it's from the research I found specifically on that was at 14 degrees, becoming inoperational at -2. Now, we all know that in extreme situations, here in Missouri, we can reach those temperatures. If these units then become inoperational at that temperature, that's when we're looking at our high crisis area for our energy. They don't operate. Plain and simple.
Can I just address that? Each individual unit has air conditioning.
That's right. They are. That individual units are limited in their capacity for extreme ranges. For it. Do you know the lifespan specifically of each individual best unit on average?
It depends on how much they're cycled, but I believe it's 15.
Actually, ma'am, I believe the research is showing on average, low end is 5 years, upper end is about 10.5 with an average of 8.3 that that every 8.3 years on average, each of these units will have to be removed, replaced with new units. The noise level. You indicated you had studies out of 55 decibels. I've seen research that indicates for each individual unit operates on average at 75 decibels per unit. Now, 56 units operating at 75. A lawnmower, in today's modern lawnmower, is operated about 83 decibels. That is a considerable ambient noise increase over what is out there at this point over the substation. Excuse me. My next question I just addressed to our honorable fire chief. We discussed specifically the fire safety issues. One of the major limiting factors of a fire unit being able to suppress a fire is water availability. Is there a hydrant anywhere close specifically to this location?
And yeah, the nearest hydrant to this location is just east of there at Old Prospect.
Yeah, my house.
What would be the difficulty of getting water specifically to this site?
That's the question I'm asking as well. That's the city.
I mean, that's a long way to be pumping water through a pumper truck.
Right.
Does the city or the county fire district have adequate storage or adequate tanker support to address an emergency situation at this point?
At this point, with the preliminary plans, we feel that we can support those efforts. But as the studies with batteries still continue, we're gaining more and more information about what we would actually have to supply should there be an emergency.
But it could be a concern as far as just adequate water supply to take on a high thermal energy issue.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the time. Thank you. And again, appreciate your consideration for all of these concerns.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do next. Both commissioners have someplace else they've got to go. I'm not going anywhere. Austin Fax is our county attorney, very good county attorney, represents us well, us citizens in the county. Well, Austin, is there anything you want to address today, what you've heard, and before we go to some more public?
Not really at this point. No.
Okay, so we're just listening and learning, but we'll let these two commissioners go. But I'm still interested in making sure that everyone is heard. Who is next? Okay, come on up, sir. Yes. Okay. We will adjourn this meeting, and I'm just now going to open it back for a town hall.
And just for the record, if anybody would like to reach me, my cell phone number is published pretty much everywhere. bjackson at christiancountyho.gov. I apologize. I have multiple meetings set up for today, and I didn't realize this one was going to run quite as long as it did. It started 30 minutes late, so I apologize for my absence. But please reach out to me with your concerns.